Hello and welcome to this in-depth news report. Tonight we focus on a growing media controversy in the United States that has triggered sharp criticism, internal dissent, and a broader debate over press freedom, political influence, and corporate power. CBS News is facing intense backlash after it pulled a 60 Minutes investigation into alleged abuses at El Salvador's Maximum Security Terrorism Confinement Center, known as CECOT, just hours before it was scheduled to air. The decision has sparked accusations of political interference, with the program's own correspondent stating the report was postponed for political reasons. While the network maintains it required additional reporting, the incident has drawn reactions from journalists, lawmakers, academics, and media critics, many of whom warn that the move reflects a troubling shift in editorial independence amid growing ties between corporate media leadership and the Trump administration. In this report, we examine what the investigation revealed, why it was pulled, the internal fallout at CBS News, and why this episode is raising serious concerns about censorship and the future of independent journalism. The controversy centers on a 60 Minutes investigation titled Inside CECOT, which focused on El Salvador's Terrorism Confinement Center, a massive maximum security prison that has become a key destination for immigrants deported by the Trump administration. The report was scheduled to air on Sunday night but was abruptly pulled just hours before broadcast. The sudden decision immediately raised alarms within CBS News and across the wider U.S. media landscape. According to CBS News, the segment needed additional reporting. A network spokesperson said the piece would air in a future broadcast, and a statement posted on the program's social media accounts echoed that explanation. However, that account was directly contradicted by Shireen Alfonsi, the veteran correspondent who reported the story. In a leaked email to colleagues, Alfonsi stated that the report had already undergone extensive internal review. She wrote that the story had been screened 5 times and had been cleared by CBS attorneys as well as the network's standards and practices team. According to Alfonsi, the investigation was factually correct and met every editorial requirement. She argued that pulling the report at the last minute was not an editorial decision but a political one. Alfonsi warned that if a government's refusal to participate in a story becomes grounds to cancel it, journalists effectively hand authorities a kill switch over inconvenient reporting. The investigation itself included allegations of torture and abuse involving Venezuelan deportees who were sent to CECOT by the United States. The report questioned how U.S. authorities characterized the deportees and examined whether they were wrongfully portrayed as dangerous criminals. CECOT is located on the edge of a jungle approximately 75 kilometers southeast of San Salvador. It has been promoted by El Salvador's right-wing President Nayib Bukele as the centerpiece of his aggressive campaign against narcotics gangs and organized crime. Human rights organizations have repeatedly raised concerns about the facility, describing brutal treatment of inmates, harsh confinement conditions, and widespread abuse. Several deportees who were later released have publicly described repeated mistreatment while held at the prison. The prison has also been at the center of a major U.S. legal dispute. In March, the Trump administration sent hundreds of Venezuelan and other migrants to CECOT, despite a U.S. judge's order that they be returned to the United States. That decision intensified scrutiny of both U.S. deportation policies and conditions inside the prison. Although CBS pulled the report domestically, the investigation appeared to have briefly streamed on Canada's Global TV app, leading to its circulation online and further fueling criticism of the network's handling of the story. The fallout has extended well beyond the newsroom. Many critics argue that CBS's parent company, Paramount Skydance, may have intervened to avoid antagonizing the Trump administration at a sensitive moment. Skydance Media, led by David Ellison, acquired Paramount in August. Ellison is the son of Larry Ellison, a major donor to President Donald Trump ahead of his election. The acquisition received regulatory approval after assurances that CBS News would reflect varied ideological perspectives. Since the takeover, CBS has faced growing criticism that it is shifting toward an editorial stance more aligned with the Trump administration. In October, the company appointed Bari Weiss as editor-in-chief of CBS News. Weiss is known for her criticism of woke politics and her strong positions on Israel. Critics argue that her appointment marked a turning point in the network's editorial direction. Weiss, however, has defended the decision to delay the CECOT report, stating that holding stories that are not ready happens regularly in newsrooms. She told the New York Times that the network would air the investigation when it was ready and suggested it lacked sufficient context or critical voices. Yet internal accounts paint a more contentious picture. Tanya Simon, the executive producer of 60 Minutes, reportedly told staff that she had resisted Weiss' order to pull the story but was ultimately forced to comply, according to a transcript reported by the Washington Post. Simon said the team defended the story and pushed back, but changes were demanded from above. The timing of the decision has further heightened suspicion. Paramount Skydance is currently involved in a multi-billion-dollar bidding war with Netflix to acquire Warner Bros. Discovery. President Trump has publicly signaled interest in the deal, which would likely require regulatory approval. Critics suggest that pulling a politically sensitive investigation could be an attempt to avoid regulatory friction with the administration. The reaction from political figures has been swift. Democratic Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer accused Trump and his allies of trying to shape what Americans see and hear to create an alternative reality. He said the administration does not have a veto over journalism and that a free press exists to hold power accountable. Media commentators and academics echoed those concerns. Liberal magazine, The New Republic, described the incident as evidence that political censorship under the Trump administration was already taking place. Political scientist Norm Ornstein called the episode beyond monstrous, while activist and podcaster Amy Suskind criticized CBS for what she described as weak capitulation. Columnist Matthew Iglesias pointed out the irony of the report leaking online despite being blocked domestically, noting that canceling a broadcast to curry favor with power while it appears elsewhere undermines the very goal of suppression. The controversy has now become a broader symbol of anxiety over the independence of American media institutions at a time when political pressure, corporate consolidation, and regulatory power increasingly intersect. To conclude, the decision by CBS News to pull a 60 Minutes investigation into El Salvador's CECOT prison has triggered a storm of criticism and raised profound questions about editorial independence, political influence, and the role of corporate ownership in shaping journalism. While CBS maintains the report requires more work, the correspondent behind the story and multiple senior staff members argued that it was fully vetted and pulled for political reasons. As reactions continue to pour in from journalists, lawmakers, and media watchdogs, the episode has become a flashpoint in the wider debate over press freedom in the United States. Whether and when the report will air remains uncertain. What is clear is that this incident has intensified scrutiny of how news organizations operate under political and corporate pressure. Thank you for watching. Stay informed, and we will continue to bring you detailed coverage of the stories that shape media, power, and accountability.